ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining for part two. Well, that's part two of our SpaGirl interview with founder Karen Haines. Now, a little bit of background if you didn't see part one, and I'm going to put a link for part one in this video. Karen Haines worked as a flight attendant for 18 years. She then got remarried, and with her current husband, they run a motorcycle tour and racing business that started with an office in their bedroom. They grew it and grew it and grew it. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then upon reading an article about how Bethany Frankel sold her Skinny Girl Margarita business, that is what gave Karen Haines the idea to start SpaGirl, which is basically ready-made vodka cocktails.
Yes, SpaGirl is a all-natural, gluten-free, low-calorie, most importantly, low-sugar vodka cocktails. And it's true, I did start reading a magazine. It was a Forbes magazine in Palm Springs on Bethany Frankel because I had been following her and her success. So she did sell to Jim Beam. But what I got to thinking is I've been doing this for years, decades, with clients mixing cocktails, signature drinks of any sort for parties. So I thought, well, I'm going to do it. Let's see what I can do here. And that was the dream. But then what came from that is the lifestyle branding process. Because I feel in the spirits industry, especially female owned and managed, there's really not a brand that really speaks to women that's beautiful, like a Kate Spade or a Tory Burch or a Diane von Furstenberg. So take a little bit of fabulous alcohol that's low calorie and all the great attributes, and then you just add all this beauty to it. And it's good for men, women, families, celebrations. So that's really how it started. And that's what kept the dream going and going.
Speaking of branding, your branding on your site is quite obvious, and on your packaging. How did that come about? It's clearly deliberate because there's an overall theme. And obviously you have a background with that, but did you solicit help? How did you go about that?
Yes, the brand, it was really important for me because I thought the brand was equally as important as the product that I wanted in the bottle. And branding, it really came from my lifestyle or, the things that I love. For years, again, I rip out magazine pictures. I have boxes of favorite images. So I kind of wrapped all this stuff together to create the SpaGirl brand. And I was very much influenced by Palm Springs. I love the Parker Hotel. That's basically the logo, as I mentioned, in the orange doors. But I did hire a great guy, Matt Bright, and we worked together for years. The first part, he showed me about 4 or 5 different concepts. And since I'm more of a 70s girl, I went right towards that 70s font. And that's kind of how that all started.
When you launched SpaGirl, not only was this a new business to you, but it was a venture into an industry you had no experience in. You talked about hiring Elisa before, but how did you go about determining how to pick a CEO for a company when not only had you not done that before, but again, this is a new industry, a new business for you. So when you don't have the background, it's kind of hard to know what to choose.
Oh, correct. I think I started out where I would hire, as I mentioned, consultants, and that helped me a bit. But I really needed the structure and the management within the company. One of the obstacles really was money. How can I afford the right people? So that was the biggest challenge, especially in the industry, trying to build a brand in the alcohol industry. You need a big budget. So we were rolling along, well, we had stores, we had traction, but we needed to take that next step. And that step was to really organize. And I knew that wasn't my, if I could, I would have had that accomplished. I did work with a few men trying to help me with business plans just to get me to the next place. And it didn't work. But there was just something magical when Elisa and I met that, wow, we could really work together and really take this to another level.
When you hired Elisa, obviously you had more free time on your hands. So what did you start doing with that time? Because typically in your role, it's more about driving the company. It's more about what I would say, it's more like abstract because you're not handling the day-to-day stuff.
Oh, such a great question. At first, I was a little numb and shocked because I would work, 8, 10, 12 hours trying to make sure compliances were done. I was a one-woman show. So when I no longer had to do that, I was like, I don't know what to do with myself in a way. And then we just kept talking and working on different flavors, which, we launched a couple new flavors. We canned our cute little cans, and we've got a sparkling collection coming out. So that's where I feel my expertise really weighs in, is product and development and continuing branding. So it's so nice not to have all those other worries.
Well, plus when you are freed up from all of those day-to-day things, it allows you to see things that you wouldn't see before. Like during the pandemic, well, we're still in the thing, but some of the things I saw once my schedule was freed up, I didn't see before because I was so busy with day-to-day stuff. So the pandemic was a blessing in the sense that it made me realize, I need to look at the branding. I need to do this, this, and this. And I didn't see these things before. I kind of knew, but when your schedule's so full, sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees.
Very, very true. And I felt the same way during the pandemic. It really made it so clear. I could just go through page by page and peel back and what works and what really looks pretty and goes back to the aesthetics of building this lifestyle brand.
You mentioned before about how you've been selling your product in stores, like doing in-store demos. I know one thing you touched on was smell, where you get people to smell. So could you take us through some of the things you did when you were in stores doing in-store tastings? What did you do to get people to taste? What were some of your, whether it be how you set up your table with your branding, whether it be how you got people interested, what did you do?
Yes, we had a prior to COVID, really successful tasting program. And we would hire brand ambassadors, spa girls, and we'd set up a beautiful table with fresh flowers and branded little tasting cups. And truly, with our product, what's so beautiful about it is the nose itself. So if you open our cucumber, our pear, peach, you definitely smell the freshest, most lovely scent to your nose. So that was a big selling point. But we would say, just give it a smell. Test it, smell it. And they'd smell. And the nose of it, they're like, wow, that's really good. So then they taste it and like, wow, that's not what I thought at all. And then they'd buy it. So we could sell anywhere from 10, 15, 20, even 30 bottles in a 3-hour period.
Was that your first time ever having done in-store tastings?
My very first one, and in fact, I did many. I did them all for a long, long time, and still do go with some of the girls. So it was hard at first. I've never done it. Just like building this company and going into the industry. But you get used to people saying no. You get used to all these things, and you just smile and you keep going, and you do get success.
Being that in-store tastings were new to you, if you compare to when you first started doing in-store tastings to what you do now, how has your approach changed?
I think we've really slimmed it down. In fact, our bottles are really nice and chilled to begin with. We keep it simple, flowers, our bottles on ice, lots of bottles on the table to purchase, and tasting cups. And it's funny, the brand on our little tasting cups, people just want the cups. They're like, oh, they're so cute. Can I have those? So we give those. Another big selling point that we do in our tastings is we order online these little lights that light up on the bottom of the bottle. I don't know if you've seen those, but they're really fun, and they come in three. They go solid or blink and fast blink, and people love that. So we, give them. You can buy them, a ton of them, and they're probably 50 cents or a dime each or something. And people would buy the bottle, and we'd give them one of the little lights on it, and be a perfect gift for a celebration or hostess gift.
People like free stuff.
People love free stuff, yes.
Getting your brand out there. So here you are, you create a SpaGirl, blah, blah, blah. You got it. Tell us briefly how you went from, okay, I've got a bottle of a product, to getting it into stores, to getting it distributed, and so on and so forth.
This was where I had to challenge myself a lot, because it was up to me to load it in the car and walk into those independent liquor stores and try to sell it. And that's literally what I do. That's why getting into the grocery chains is so important and so hard, because they take orders 6 months in advance for the next year. So everyone say, oh, no, we're set. No, we're set. Or you couldn't even get the meeting. But slowly, by just knocking on doors and leaving bottles and trying to get people to taste it, it slowly worked. I mean, it was guerrilla marketing at its very best.
Yeah, I don't know any other way than to just basically, it's not like a movie you released where you just release a trailer, but with this, you got to get the product into people's mouths. So I don't know any other way than, pavement pounding.
Yes, we call it heels on the street.
Yes.
And that's exactly what we do. And it does pay off.
Well, clearly, because you are with a large distributor now, right? Is Glazers? Is it?
Yes. We have a national distribution contract with Southern Glazer.
Very nice. That's huge.
Yeah, it is. Oh my gosh. And that was a huge turning point, because as I mentioned earlier, distribution is everything. And to have such a good partner working with you, we do our job and they do theirs, and we just keep expanding.
What's I don't want to ask any confidential information about the company, but can you give the average person out there just an idea of what the approximate startup cost is to start a beverage brand?
Oh, be happy to. Now, remember, I did everything the hard way and spent a lot of money doing things that it's almost like you just threw it away for lack of knowledge or experience. But I do not think you can even start at all with anything less than $500,000.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's a lot. And that is knowing what I know now. So what we would do, it would be $5,000 here, and, I'd pay that bill, and, rob Peter to pay Paul, and all these different things starting up. But I think it's so doable. And I think if you have a good business plan within your mind to begin with, you can do it.
Well, and you said you had a lot of investors, right?
Well, we had about 5 angel investors after about 3 years. So up until that point, and then even then, you would have to keep self-funding. It's one of those things, you're so close to making it, and you're so close to going under. It's a very fine line.
Well, it's like take chefs for example. I don't know. You see these chefs that open restaurants. No chef has millions of dollars to open his own place. So typically what happens is you work your way up. You become a chef. You hopefully you're doing great food, and you put your mark on the food world in whatever town you're in. And the dream is you find some venture capitalist or somebody rich who's like, oh, hey, can I speak to the chef? Oh yeah, hey, how are you? Let's open a place. That's generally how it can work. And then these chefs, the way I've never owned an actual restaurant, but I know that the chefs, if they don't actually put their own money, they'll just take a percentage. And then if you open up enough restaurants, that percentage adds up and you can make, good money. And as my father once told me, and I guess this depends on your view, I agree with it, but I guess depends on the scenario. He said, look, if you're going to open a business, don't put your own money. Let somebody else do that. You're bringing the knowledge. You're going to be there working it and doing everything. Let somebody else put their money. And I think there's some sense to that. Again, it depends on what works for everybody. Everybody's different.
I think so. I think with my challenge was people didn't really believe in the idea. They'd say, with all due respect, oh, skinny girl, been there, done that, don't like it. And so I had another challenge on top of it to not be like her, but to be better. And it just, so it was challenging. So I couldn't get anybody to believe in me. And I was, at that early stage, I didn't have a business background other than running my husband's business. So, it was very difficult, but you just can't stop. You just got to keep going.
Well, I would guess that because you didn't have that background, is it fair to say some people probably wrote it off like, yeah, you just want to do your little hobby thing type? Is it?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
I think people are surprised. They're like, wow, you've really stuck with it, and look what's happening and the momentum we're getting. Because it could be so easy to give up, but that's just not my nature. I was not going to give up because I never doubted it. I never doubted the concept. I never doubted the brand. I never doubted what we could actually do. So it's very fun to see it, growing and happening now.
You have a flavor house that created, you created the recipes and you gave it to them to reproduce. How does one find a flavor house? I mean, you just Google, how can somebody make my vodka?
Call me. I've been through them all. I worked with 5 prior to meeting David Ames at Sovereign Flavors. So as I mentioned, I even traveled across the country, worked right in their laboratory with the chemist, and and nothing worked. But we just had this, this synergy when David and I met. And what we did, which was really good, is that our first meeting, I brought my homemade, cucumber martini in. We tasted it, and then they went back and came back with some samples, and they were really overly flavored. And we decided, what really works well, I said, let's just start with the vodka. Just let me just drink, taste the pure vodka without any flavors. Then let's cut it. Let's take it from 80 proof down to 30, down to 60, 40, 30. And we did, and we ended up at 33 proof, 16.5%, strictly by just tasting it and then adding a little real sugar cane in it. Then from there, we built the flavors. But if you started with the flavors, it was just too overpowering. So there's a lot of little ways you can go about doing it. And I feel that in a flavor profile, I would be curious your thoughts on this. When it comes to taste, less is more. You don't want to be overpowered too much.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a real life example that I used to do. Corn and crab chowder with chorizo and roasted peppers. Well, if you taste the chorizo first, there's a problem because it's corn and crab chowder. Those other flavors are there to back it up, or if I make you a nice fresh tomato salad, I get some nice tomatoes from the garden, that are, maybe nice heirloom tomatoes that are just beautiful, ripe, ready to, you could almost bite into them like an apple. But then I dress it with so much ranch dressing or something else that it actually, cooking simple is more difficult because there's less to hide behind.
It's true. I agree with that.
So,
and that was the philosophy in building flavors. You don't want someone to take a drink and go, oh boy, that's really, coconut or something. You want it to be so subtle, and you want them to drink 1 or 2 or 3.
Right. And funny, I learned recently that like Tito's vodka, and then there's some others, they're actually, some of these different vodkas, they come from the same house. They're made with the same vodka, but what these companies do is you probably know this, they just add their own flavoring and make it theirs. Kind of like if as a chef, if I have my tomato soup base and I sell it, and then everybody just adds their You know,
that's quite common. It
yeah,
really
I
is.
didn't know that. I learned that recently. How did you originally find a flavor house to begin with? Because, you know, I assume at one point you didn't even know what you didn't know. So
No,
you were just, what were you doing? Just Googling who makes vodka for companies, or?
that's exactly what I did. I Googled it. It's so funny. How do I start a liquor business? How do I find a flavor house? And that's how it worked.
Ah.
I worked. It was really tricky because I'd make my vodka. I'd make my cucumber martini. You know, put it in glass because it's always better in glass. Wrap it, put it on dry ice, and ship it across the country so it would get there in time for them to start working on it. And you know, it's so hard because you're not supposed to ship alcohol, and it was a challenge, but we got it. As I said, I went back and forth a couple of times to different houses, and it didn't work. So I was so grateful, and I fell upon Sovereign Flavors in Southern California just accidentally. Oh yes, what we're looking to do for next spring, and I've been working on it, is coming out with popsicles. So that will be really fun. Little alcoholic, boozy pop. So that'll be
awesome. And as a former chef, I like things like that. Popsicles. I like that.
You know, one of the reasons why I liked that idea and even came up with it, or we talked about it as a team, was if you take our SpaGirl peach, pear, cucumber now, and you put it in the freezer, it will, depending on your freezer, it will freeze because it's at 33 proof. But it just gets like this ganache, and it's a perfect, you know, palate cleanser between courses too. So that's kind of what got me thinking about, you know, the popsicles. And they are made, you know, they'll be pretty popular, I think.
You know, that'd be kind of funny to see a SpaGirl ice cream truck going through the neighborhood with the bells ringing, except you're only serving the alcoholic SpaGirls. And then, of course, the kids would come up thinking it's regular, like, no, let me see your ID. And
it'd be fantastic. I'd love that.
But hey, thank you again. I wish you all the best, and I wish you mucho SpaGirl success.
Thank you.
And I'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.